welcome. We welcome Diane, and there's someone else there I can't quite see. So, the week that was. I don't know about you, but it was a week of ups and downs, and I just thought, well, just have to do one day at a time. And every day was a special day metaphysically this week for Easter. And when we look back over the week, did everyone have a reasonable week? Anyone have a particular day they didn't enjoy? I know someone has. And I think I had it on the Tuesday. It was one of those days I felt the weight of the planet. And I thought, well, look, I've got the teachings. And so I just went upstairs into my little loft and just potted around. And next day I was okay, but there was nothing I really could do. I could have worked on the talk, I could have done anything, could have played the piano, but I didn't. I just was. I just had to just be. So you can imagine what it was like, the drama of the week when Jesus moved back into Jerusalem. The first time Jesus went into Jerusalem, he came down from the mountain on the back of a donkey, and that was just after he was baptized by John the Baptist. And John the Baptist baptized him according to the metaphysical way we talk about it with the water baptism, which is an intellectual baptism. And it doesn't go too deep, but Jesus went up the mountain and tested this. And as he was up there, his other side of his ego said to him, look, you've got this information. Look at the power you have. Look what you can do. And we probably know the story, but it's not part of today. But he said, get behind me, Satan. And he came down the mountain on a donkey representing his ego. He was controlling his ego. We need an ego, otherwise we wouldn't last 2 minutes here. And that's when they all sang Hosanna. And the palm trees, leaves were waved. And we talked about palm trees, I think, last week. And I was going to do something much about it, but I didn't. But I know Reverend Sylvia, she used to say, when she dreamt of palm trees, the first time she dreamt of them, they were little. Then as her faith grew, the palm trees got bigger and bigger in her dreams. And I'll ask her that if we can ever get her back on here, which I'm hoping she will. As we know, she'll be 100 in May. Still able to, to talk and give advice, but gets very tired, but we're looking forward to seeing her very soon. So then happened the 3 years of Jesus doing his miracles, and interestingly enough, his first miracle was the miracle of changing water, which was his original baptism, into wine. Now, after 3 years, the politics had stirred up, and it wasn't a pleasant place to be in at that particular time around the Jerusalem. But on the Monday, Jesus decides, let's get going with the week. So he cleanses the temple. He goes into that temple, and I wonder if it was the same one that he went into when he was young, when he was 12, with Hillel, that wonderful rabbi. And what he did, he threw over the tables and released animals and things like that. But metaphysically, we have to do the same thing of ourselves. Those stupid thoughts that are there. And I sometimes think, as I get older, I think, where did this come from? Stuff you look back and think, my God, did I do that? Did I have the cheek to do that? It got me places, but at what cost? So I've now got to think, well, that was then, this is now, and we just have to let it go. We are the temple of the living God. And we have to eventually come to the point where, what are we doing with our teachings? Are we going to use them? And I'm finding myself lately that I'm really having to use them, even with driving. I bless my car, I bless my fellow drivers, passengers and pedestrians, and I say, let me drive safely, wisely and well, let me arrive at my destinations in peace, tranquility and punctuality, and so be it. There's another little bit that goes with that. But when I do that, if I come up against a bunch of cars, a traffic jam or something, I say, well, look, God's prepared the way. There's obviously a reason for it. So I'm starting to build, I think, what they call established consciousness, which means we're not easily knocked off our perch. Tuesday, that was a bad day I had last week. Jesus passes the barren fig tree. This is in the morning. And I think Jesus must have been hungry and he was annoyed because it was a barren fig tree, so there goes breakfast. So he goes on into the temple again and his authority is questioned. He condemns the Pharisees and Sadducees for their practice of people being bound to a God up there, out there. And Jesus makes it known that he has come to teach the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. And here's where we have, even if you're not religious or even spiritual, here's profound wisdom, the law of life. This is the wonderful saying, two commandments actually. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy soul and with all thy mind, and thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. That would get us pretty well on the way, as far as I'm concerned. That golden rule can apply to all of us, anywhere, anytime. Cooperation. My goodness, is this the time for it? Wednesday. Okay, a quieter day for Jesus. As quiet as it can be, knowing what's going on behind the scenes with the religious leaders secretly conspiring against him. All of us know when someone is, you can sense it if you're empathic, and if you wouldn't be in this place here if you weren't empathic. You can feel things. A woman came up to him with an alabaster jar of very precious oil and poured it on his head as he sat during a meal. The oil is identified as spikenard and one of the oils used for incense in the Temple of Jerusalem. It is claimed it has many therapeutic uses, including healing for deep-seated grief, emotional pain. In this case, it was used to ease a transition from life to death. The faith of Jesus was enough to keep him going, but our human side suffers as we think, well, look, I will eventually leave the mortal coil, and not when we're young, but I think as we get older, our body elemental, which has been part of us for all our life, leaves us. And we go on to where we're supposed to be going next. Jesus was there and Judas complained that they were wasting the oil. Judas represents that part of our soul that will cheat or steal from us that which is precious to our soul. As Judas betrayed Jesus the Christ, we sometimes betrayed ourselves. How so? We make ourselves so busy in the outer world, we don't have time to devote to our inner Christ. We don't have time to pray, meditate, and study the spiritual laws and put them into practice. Jesus answers, the poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. Jesus means poor in consciousness. We need time to ourselves. And on this day, Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Thursday, Jesus gathers his disciples in an upper room in Jerusalem for the Passover meal, the Last Supper. Here they partook of bread and wine, and symbolically, bread represents universal substance. Our daily bread is a substance for spirit, mind and body. Some of this daily bread is in the form of food. There is substance in the words of truth as revealed in prayer and meditation. Wine represents the vitality that forms the connecting link between body and soul. Jesus was first baptized with water. Charles Fillmore writes, when John the Baptist baptized Jesus with water, he washed away the errors of an external character. It does not enter the subconscious. It takes something more powerful than water to purify error conditions accumulated by the soul in many incarnations. I groan in tiredness just thinking about that. This is represented by wine. And as I mentioned before, the wedding at Cana, Jesus performed that first miracle, turning water into wine. And this is symbolic of blending the thoughts of the outer and inner, creating, as I said before, established consciousness. Or we could say, Holy Communion. And in the Minister's Manual, which I have in my room over there, it's an old manual, I don't know whether people still do it, but Unity used to have a Holy Communion service. It's in there. I must bring it over and show a couple of people. Metaphysical, of course. And someone said to me the other day, they can go into any church and just feel it because they understand what is going on. Especially in the Catholic Church. You know, I can see the symbolism and I can identify with it in what I believe to be. On the Friday Jesus is crucified. The metaphysical meaning of this is the crossing out in consciousness of errors that have become fixed states in our mind. The surrender or death of the whole personality in order that the Christ mind may be expressed in fullness. The word resurrection. This is our evolving consciousness, our gradual awareness of an ever-expanding concept of spiritual truth. It is the restoring of the mind and body back to its original state, accompanied by the realization that God is spirit. And God created us with the same power that it has. You've heard it said many times. We are all individual expressions of this one presence and one power. We are it in action. But we mustn't get ahead of ourselves. We didn't invent the power. And it's interesting to note that months before his crucifixion, Jesus is quoted in John 11:25 as saying, I am the resurrection and the life. They that believe in me, though they were dead, they shall live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believe you this. And then Mark 15. As Jesus' physical body died, it says, and the veil of the temple was rent from top to bottom. Symbolically, we are the temple. And the veil of the temple is over us, not around God. The veil is a fitting symbol of our spiritual ignorance. With every new revelation of truth, the veil grows thinner. The truth has always been there, and gradually become aware of it. And as we progress on this journey through life, in all its challenges, we are blessed with this knowledge. So to sum up, Revelations 21, verse 5. Behold, I make all things new. Those of us on the path, conscious spiritual path of unfoldment, have found that as our awareness expands, we see what already is and has been, but from a new perspective. That old song, everything old is new again, it's not an old song really. We know only too well that everything in the physical world changes. Friends, music, fashions, our beliefs, including our dear body. And in this garden of earthly delights, we can easily forget that our body is a temporary, though amazing, vehicle for our soul growth. And our growth will continue in whatever body we happen to be in. For we are all individual expressions of that power, and Spirit will use whatever vehicle it can to express more and more and more of itself. Everyone on this planet has gone through the process of the physical body dying to the world and our soul being reincarnated many times in a new physical body until we reach that, saying again, established consciousness. We process this as we work and live in line with universal spiritual law, and no one can do this for us. But as we know, when Jesus was resurrected, we too are resurrected with a new state of consciousness as life goes on. I recognise the risen Christ in family, friends, and my spiritual community. And so it is. Thank you.